Welcome to Copilot Podcasts. Did you know that a single kilogram of one particular spice can sell for up to $5,000? That's more than the price of gold. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of high-value crops, the plants that are quite literally worth their weight in gold. We'll explore what makes these crops so valuable and how they're reshaping global agriculture.
And it's not just about luxury items either. These crops are transforming entire economies and creating sustainable farming practices that could help solve some of our biggest agricultural challenges.
Let's start with that $5,000 spice I mentioned. We're talking about saffron, right?
Exactly. Saffron is fascinating because it's not just expensive, it's also incredibly labor-intensive. Did you know it takes about 200,000 flowers to produce just 1 kilogram of saffron?
Wait, what, 200,000 flowers?
Yeah, and here's what's really interesting. In Europe, farmers can make over 170,000 euros per hectare per year from saffron cultivation. That's an astronomical return compared to traditional crops.
You know, I've always wondered why saffron became such a prestigious spice in the first place.
Well, historically, saffron was reserved for royalty and religious ceremonies. Its intense color and unique flavor made it a symbol of wealth and power. But what's really exciting is that it's now being successfully grown in places like Sapa, Vietnam.
Vietnam? That's surprising. I thought it was mainly grown in places like Iran and Spain.
That's what makes these high-value crops so interesting. They're often more adaptable than we think. Vietnam has actually become a powerhouse in several high-value crops.
Tell us more about Vietnam's success story.
Well, take coffee, for example. Vietnam is now the world's second-largest coffee exporter, with exports worth over $5.6 billion in 2024. They're actually the #1 exporter of Robusta coffee globally.
That's impressive for a relatively small country.
And it doesn't stop there. Their tropical fruit exports reached $7.1 billion in 2024, with durian alone exceeding $3.2 billion.
Let's talk about some other high-value crops. I've been hearing a lot about macadamia nuts lately.
Yes, macadamia is fascinating because it's not just about the nuts. The global market is expanding rapidly, with prices ranging from $10 to $30 per kilogram for kernels.
And they're versatile too, right?
Absolutely. They're used in food, cooking oils, cosmetics, and they're particularly interesting from a sustainability perspective because the trees can live for 50 to 70 years.
Speaking of sustainability, I've heard some surprising things about hemp.
Hemp is actually one of the most versatile crops we have. The global market reached $9.6 billion in 2024, and it's growing at an incredible rate of 25% annually.
What makes it so special?
Well, here's something remarkable. Hemp can absorb between 15 and 22 tons of CO2 per hectare per year. That's significant for climate change mitigation.
That's incredible. What else can it do?
It's used in textiles, construction materials, food, medicine, energy production, and even bioplastics. Plus, it grows well in poor soil conditions and actually helps improve soil quality.
You mentioned poor soil conditions. That seems counterintuitive for a high-value crop.
That's one of the most interesting aspects of some of these crops. Take bamboo, for example. It thrives in areas where other crops struggle, and the global market is expected to reach $22.5 billion by 2026.
And bamboo grows incredibly fast, doesn't it?
Yes, you can harvest it in just 3 to 5 years, compared to decades for traditional timber. And it's used in everything from construction to textiles to food.
Let's talk about some of the challenges in growing these high-value crops.
Well, take vanilla, for example. The price can fluctuate dramatically, from $20 to $250 per kilogram, and sometimes even up to $500 for premium quality.
Why such huge price swings?
It's mainly due to weather risks, diseases, and supply-demand cycles. Madagascar produces 80% of the world's vanilla, which makes the global supply very vulnerable to local conditions.
That sounds risky for farmers.
It is, which is why diversification is so important. Many farmers are now growing multiple high-value crops to spread their risk.
What about blueberries? They're often called a superfood.
Yes, global blueberry production reached 2 million tons in 2024, with prices ranging from $5 to $15 per kilogram. They're particularly interesting because they can be grown in many different climates now, thanks to new varieties.
Are there any emerging trends in high-value crops that we should be watching?
One fascinating trend is the growing demand for medicinal and aromatic plants. Ginger, turmeric, and garlic exports from Vietnam alone reached nearly $60 million in 2024.
That's interesting. What's driving that demand?
There's growing interest in natural health products and traditional medicine. These crops are also incredibly versatile. They're used in food, medicine, cosmetics, and even industrial applications.
Let's talk about sustainability. How do these high-value crops fit into sustainable agriculture?
Many of these crops actually support sustainable farming practices. They often require less water, fewer chemicals, and can be grown using organic methods.
Can you give us a specific example?
Take macadamia trees. They can live for up to 70 years, helping to prevent soil erosion and providing a long-term carbon sink. Plus, they can be intercropped with coffee or other plants to maximize land use.
That's fascinating. What about technology in this sector?
Technology is transforming how we grow these crops. Farmers are using sensors, drones, AI, and blockchain for everything from irrigation management to supply chain tracking.
How does blockchain come into play?
It's mainly used for traceability. When you're dealing with crops worth thousands of dollars per kilogram, buyers want to be absolutely certain about their origin and quality.
Let's talk about the future. Where do you see this sector heading?
I think we'll see continued growth in crops that serve multiple purposes, like hemp and bamboo, that can provide food, materials, and environmental benefits simultaneously.
And what about traditional farming regions? How will they adapt?
Many are already transitioning. Vietnam's success shows how a country can transform its agricultural sector by focusing on high-value crops and sustainable practices.
What advice would you give to farmers considering these crops?
Start small, diversify, and focus on quality over quantity. These crops often require specialized knowledge and careful management, but the returns can be substantial.
Any final thoughts on the impact of these crops?
They're really reshaping agriculture as we know it. It's not just about feeding people anymore, it's about creating sustainable, profitable farming systems that can adapt to climate change and market demands.
That's a great point about adaptation.
And what's particularly exciting is that we're just scratching the surface. New varieties, technologies, and markets are emerging all the time.
It sounds like an industry with enormous potential.
Absolutely. And with global challenges like climate change and food security, these high-value sustainable crops will become increasingly important.
Well, that brings us to the end of our fascinating journey through the world of high-value crops.
Yes, from $1,000 spices to carbon-absorbing superplants, it's amazing how these crops are changing agriculture.
And to think, it all started with that $5,000 kilogram of saffron we mentioned at the beginning.
Which, by the way, is still less expensive than the truffles we didn't even get to discuss.
Looks like we'll need another episode for those. Thanks for joining us on Copilot Podcasts, where we've learned that in agriculture, sometimes less really is more, especially when it comes to these incredible high-value crops.